What does it mean? Welcome to Nightly News. Like when that stuff comes on, it sounds so corny. It's like, watch the news today, and it's kind of, I don't know who watches the news from the younger generation. What? The entertainment, there's the ideas, the symbols, the words, the lingo, the slang. This is all the culture, whatever this word culture even really means. Yeah, it's always being nudged around. Cultural inertia, news, media. This, you exist within the culture. I want to believe. Well, welcome back to the madhouse, the lair, the cafe, whatever you want to call it. I suppose this monologue that I'm kind of just spitballing, and it's an experiment, so bear with me. If you're here listening, welcome. So I guess today I've been spitballing a little bit of these thoughts of like cultural inertia. This idea that the zeitgeist, the culture of the time, how things are and how people think, the symbols, the words, the lingo, the slang, and this is all the culture, whatever this word culture even really means. It's pretty abstract. The culture has its like inertia, so it's kind of like it wants to stay the same, but it's ever changing, right? Its entropy is like it's constantly moving, but it's the water in which we exist. You know what I mean? It's the ether. It's the realm in which we exist. You exist within the culture, and you are part of it. It's a double feedback loop, confounding itself, double hermeneutic. We can analyze it and we can talk about it. I mean, here we are talking about it, right? But like, you are part of it every day. I mean, when you go out there and you're doing things, you're kind of in, part of you is in like this automatic mode that you're existing in your robot, you're just kind of doing your daily thing. You're thinking and you're, this conscious part of you, but there's a lot of you that's just going about the daily business, like the rituals, the ritual is cultural. So I think with that being said, though, it's hard not to look at, right, the entertainment system, the entertainment like ecosystem as like designed, right, to try to hijack the culture and try to guide the culture and steer the culture and try to make the culture, right? When you talk about music, you're talking about pop culture. It's not just music, right? It's not just a tune. It's like there's the ideas in the music too, and it's like it's part of the zeitgeist, right? Pop music, whatever. With music and stuff too, it's funny is like, a song comes on the radio and it brings me to a time, it brings me to a period, right? And it's kind of like, there's like 60s music, 70s, of course, 80s and 90s music, so different. But it's funny too, is like, I don't know, the tens, the aughts and the tens. I heard like an Akon song, and it was like, it just sparked the summer of Akon. I just remember that summer, or like 2 summers, where it was just, all you heard was Akon all over the radio. So it's just funny how like it occupies a time and a place, and the place is cultural, it's all around us, but it occupies a time too. But you look at this entertainment industry, and it's not just entertainment, I mean media, right? Media, entertainment, what's the difference? They're like intertwined, right? Media tries to say that as it's very serious, it's not, it's real and it's truthful and this and that, but it's entertainment. Is entertainment always truthful and straight up and trustworthy and whatever? It's entertainment as a cop-out, as a liability statement, disclaimer, so that you're not liable for saying something wrong or misleading or lying. So it's kind of funny, media and entertainment and whatever, but it's this big information ecosystem, right? News, media, this right here, what we're, right? This conversation. And I think naturally, the government is involved with that, and in a democracy, of course, right? So just naturally anyway, but then in a democracy, they're trying to guide and skew the culture, and it's like, I think with social media and YouTube and all these things, I think the government was kind of, right, it's a bunch of old people. I mean, maybe they were old and naive, but I think once they became wise to it, they all joined in, and both sides are, each party is trying to kind of hack the election, sway the election, right? That's how you can sway the information, move the information. And that was their slip of the tongue, though, that It's the Russian bots. Well, maybe it's the American bots. Everyone's trying to get their piece of the pie. Everyone's pushing. Everyone's nudging. But when they're asking, like, of course, Facebook before, Facebook back in the day, they're asking Facebook, like, are you swaying the election? Are you influencing elections and stuff like that? And it's kind of like they want to say no. They're not trying to. We can try not to and whatever, but it's kind of like whatever you say, whatever you do, you're always swaying, you're always nudging, you're always, that's the existence, you're always biased and all these things. And it's kind of like the real truthful answer is, yeah, like, we're not saying we're like guiding, it's a Ouija board, like we're not, like, we don't have full control over it, but like, of course, like the election, like the ideas are being swayed and moved, and, of course, Google, like, of course, they're not trying to sway necessarily, they're, in some instances they are a little bit, but at the same time it's always being nudged around. It's a Ouija board, like I always like to say as a metaphor. But then you think of this big apparatus of, right, intelligence agencies, right? So of course now that's in the information ecosystem. So you're just talking this giant cultural inertia, and it's being pushed by forces. I'm a force in it, you're a force in it, we're all a force in it. Some are big and some are small. A market of ideas. And so it is interesting, like you look at rappers and stuff like that, people that were in music, it was kind of a theme in music for a while. You became big, you were a rapper, you were the top, and you realized you weren't the top. There was like media above you that owned your label, right? And it was kind of like, Dre and stuff like that, like trying to figure out, like, yeah, I'm going to be my own label, like, I'm going to step up, like Eminem tried to do that, like, of course, like all the rappers try that, that's the next leg up. It's like you own your own media source, own your own label, own your own music, of course, and other people's music. So Lil Wayne, of course, right? The bigger fish, right, of course, move the market more. It's like the stock market, right? It's like, when you buy and sell a stock, you're buying it whatever it is, and it's like, but the big players, they're moving it more than others. The culture is moving based on, right? Of course, like I say, there's always the dark forces, like, intelligence agencies and stuff, that people that operate in the shadows that are pushing this stuff. But then, of course, just in the media industry too, there's the people without the face. They're not on the front of the brand moving it. Same thing with like the Democratic Party. It's like, or just parties in general, but Democratic parties, it's like the party has a face, but it also has these dark mechanisms behind that you don't see, that is swaying it. So there's people that are more important or more powerful than the leading candidate in their party. So same thing with the Republicans, right? And maybe that's partially why they think Trump's a little bit of a wild card, maybe you could say, in their regards, because he's kind of maybe doing his own thing. But then, of course, intelligence agency, whatever, everybody's swaying the market, the culture. But I think there's a really interesting thing that's happening, and it's such a weird dynamic. But you look at YouTube, Google, just like content creators and stuff like that, social media. It's this decentralized information ecosystem, rather than it kind of being top down and controlled by these central agents, these big fish in the pond. But it's still controlled top down by the algorithm. So, there's less distribution, less distributors, less middlemen, but, it's a different market. And I think that's the part that we're reckoning with over the past 10 years, and we're getting these fragmented, pockets of people and information and stuff like that. And it's really interesting to see how that's all working, because and that's generational too. Like some of the older generation is getting all their stuff from mainstream media, news sources. You watch the news today, and it's kind of like it was just called the news, and I don't know who watches the news from the younger generation. No one, what? And when that stuff comes on, it sounds so corny. It's like a play. It's like a they get the music on, it comes out, and welcome to, CBS, blah, blah, nightly news, and it's like, I don't know, it's just, it seems, scripted, and it's being, they're trying to push and pull these ideas around. It's centralized intelligence. It's almost like there's an agency for that. You always hear about propaganda being elsewhere. Well, everything's propaganda. It's all over. Rather than kind of just this happened today. Here's all of the shit that happened today. There's consequences with that too. Of course, the polarization in politics, but even just in general, you think when when kids were younger, when I was a kid, you're playing Nintendo 64, and hey, did you beat that level in Zelda yet? The Ocarina of Time, and it was like everyone knew that game, that was the game. Or there was another game, there was 10 games, or you had PlayStation, 10 more games, 20 games. Or, if you're playing that one, there was at least 20 pockets. Now there's like a million pockets. Everyone's playing a fucking different game, and it's like, you know what I mean? It's just crazy. It's like everyone's in a different world, so it's decentralized. Everyone's in this different world. And it's fragmented, and it's all split to pieces, So it's interesting to see the culture is, I don't have like a good visual analogy for it, but it's different, and it's changing, and it's going in that direction too. So I think what's interesting is to see it maybe fragment off a little smaller. You have these big media sources, Spotify, YouTube, and stuff like that. Other social media. But I like with the whole crypto aspect, cryptocurrencies can enable this decentralization of information in social media. I think that's the future. I don't know how long it's going to take to click, but I feel like a decentralized, like DeSo is really an interesting concept and never took off. And there's a whole bunch of other ones just like it. Noster. It's an interesting concept. Noster. Yeah, so it's like own your own content. It's hard because there needs to be some type of ad, right? Commercials, ads. There probably needs to be some type of that built in there too, into those features. But you can pay people directly for their content, tipping. So there's all that stuff, but it's like there's not this central node. It's everywhere. It's distributed, right? So decentralized. I think that's the future, but I don't know. It'll take a long time to catch on. It needs to be set free. It's like Bitcoin. It's kind of like it needs to be created. It needs to catch on so that enough people are using it. And I think in order to do that, sometimes it needs just a ton of luck. Timing is everything. Or it needs some type of central power to push it. So like Jack is a good one that he's pushing Noster, not pushing it, but he's like supporting it, whatever. And behind DeSo, there's Nader. He was kind of a good guy pushing it, but it's kind of like eventually has to be, it's big enough and whatever. It's always temptation to take control over it and kind of own it a little bit, centralized again. So you just got to be set free. But we'll see where the future leads. But if you enjoy some of these ramblings, I don't know, leave a comment. Honestly, pushback arguments are good, in my opinion. But yeah, thanks for listening, and welcome back. Welcome to this experiment.